Hey, Fedheads. Welcome back to another episode of CigarChat. I'm your host, Tripp. We're broadcast live around the world on Facebook, on rebroadcast on the Armed Forces Radio Network, available as a podcast, or on the old YouTubes, if that's still how you consume your media. As I've been mentioning for the past couple weeks, we are going to be uploading episodes on Mondays and Tuesdays from now on to podcast and YouTube. So if that's how you watch, look for new episodes at the beginning of the week, following when the show is. So this episode should be up sometime around Tuesday if I get to it before I leave town. I'm here with my co-host Jason, as always. Jason, how you doing tonight, brother?
Doing good.
And then we've got our special guests of the evening joining us from Providencia Cigars. We have Ray and Jim. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
We're doing awesome.
And a lot of our viewers, like myself, probably haven't heard of Providencia. You guys are a fairly new, pretty small company that's, still making its way into people's minds.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you tell us, let's start off with the cigars before we get into the story, because as I teased a little bit in our posts, you've got a very, very interesting backstory, Jim. That we're definitely going to get into. But first, I want to talk about the cigars. So give us just a quick overview of the cigars, and we'll come back to talk about the details a little bit later.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to let my partner Ray talk a little bit. I'm going to share a little bit about the backstory. But Ray, why don't you field that question?
Well, I'll start with 2016, which is when we came to market in June of 2016. Here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, primarily in Fort Worth. Jim had come back from Honduras after being there for 15 years, and I had known him prior to 2016, but we hadn't really spent a lot of time together. When he came back to the States and shared with me what he was doing in Honduras, that he had a couple of blends that he was very interested in bringing to market and had the company all set up, but did not have enough tobacco at the time to come to market. So we talked a little bit about it, and I asked, well, what kind of financing would that take? And he told me. And actually, this was back in 2012. We started having this conversation, but it was because that's when we started to grow the tobacco. We started to grow the tobacco in Honduras, in the Trojes Valley of Honduras in 2012. And tobacco was ready in 2016. So that's when we came to market with the two blends, the El Santo, which is a Sumatra wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, Honduran, Nicaraguan mix. Most of the filler in that blend is off of our plantation in Honduras, and the rest is Nicaraguan. And then the El Padre, which is this cigar here. This is a Connecticut wrapper, Nicaraguan grown. Oh, is this which one? Oh, I thought that, I'm sorry, my bad. This is the El Santo. The El Padre is a Nicaraguan wrapper, and also has primarily our filler with Nicaraguan filler as well, with the Nicaraguan binder. So we came to market in 2016. We started just slowly visiting shops together. We had a good summer. I think that summer we opened maybe 8 accounts. And then Jim went back to school as a school teacher, and then I was kind of left on my own to try to see what I could do with having a full-time job. And since then, I think we're in about 18 to 20 locations at this point. Some shops, some liquor stores with humidors. It's been a nice slow kind of marathon, not a sprint. The cigars have been well received. They've been reviewed. All of our blends have been reviewed and well received. And we just really lack awareness at this point. So we're really happy to be with you guys and help spread the word. So yeah, I mean, we grew 5 acres of tobacco in 2012, and our grower sold about a third of that on the open market and rolled close to 30,000 cigars for us, pretty much split between the two blends, the El Santo and the El Padre blend, and two Vitolas in each blend. So we have 2 Toros and 2 Robusto Gordos, 4.5 by 58. So, and the Toros are 6 by 52. So we came to market with four 4 SKUs or 4 Vitolas, and we've since added the Trinitas to that, which is a Figurado 6.5 by 52 that just came to market in January of this year, and that's been very well received.
Nice. So for those watching, we do have we're kind of doing this is the second time we've done it. We're doing a virtual event. The guys over at the Cigar Federation store are partnering with us to help promote Providencia. So if you go to store.cigarfederation.com and buy anything from Providencia and use the coupon code CigarChat Providencia, you get 20% off everything from them in the store, which is pretty good deal. So if you're looking to try their cigars, they're already kind of very affordable. They're in the correct me if I'm wrong, they're in like the $7 to $9 range.
Yeah, the El Padre and the El Santo retail about $8 in most places, and the new Figurado, the Trinitas, is around $12, $11.99, okay. $12 cigar. Yeah,
8 to 12.
Yeah,
but you can get 20% off if you go to store.cigarfederation.com. And we've got James Appelo. He says the Royal Leaf is watching.
All right, what's up, Royal Leaf? James. Royal Loyals. Eagle!
You guys must know those guys, huh?
We do. The Royal Leaf. Peter and Tiffany, the owners there, our very first New Jersey cigar shop. And we're just opened up another one with Greg Nader from Goodfellas, which is a cigar lounge that just opened in Summers Point, New Jersey. And Jim and I are trying to put a trip together. It's coming together very well. Yeah, that will be in New Jersey, March 22nd through the 24th or 25th. And we plan on doing an event with the Royal Leaf and Goodfellas down in Summer Point. So we're looking forward to March in Philly, back home. I'm from South Jersey, and Jim's originally from Northeast Philadelphia. So we're big Eagle fans. In Dallas, of all places. It's been a good year for us to be in Dallas.
Good year to be an Eagles fan.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Thanks for tuning in, Royal Leaf.
Maybe the best year to be an Eagle fan.
Yeah, hopefully for the next few. Yeah.
So, Jim, now I want to talk about your very interesting journey from missionary to the cigar industry. So tell us about the first time you went to Honduras. Let's start with that.
Yeah, very interesting. I got invited to go on a short-term mission trip. I was right out of college, and I met a gentleman that did a lot of mission work in Honduras, spoke at a lot of churches, did a lot of mission work with children and local churches down there. And he just invited me to go. So I said, hey, I've never been outside of the country other than maybe, Cancun. And I said, yeah, it sounds like a blast. He actually invited me to go down and do soccer clinics for street kids on the streets. And so I got my passport ready to go. And a couple days before we were supposed to leave, he backed out. I had my ticket. I was ready to go. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going. And I said, what am I supposed to do? I don't speak Spanish. I don't know anybody there. So he gave me some contacts, and he said, I don't know, just pray about it. If you want to go by yourself, great. If not, you can back out. And I said, hey, what the hell? I'm going. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild. Showed up. The airport was chaos. I didn't even know the people that were picking me up, and we didn't have cell phones and very little internet back then. And so I didn't know what I was doing. So the only 2 Americans in the crowd outside of the airport picked me up, ended up recognizing them, and they were great. And that was my introduction into Honduras. I spent the summer there, did a lot of soccer camps for street children. Did a lot of camps, a lot of ministry on the streets, and absolutely fell in love with the country. While I was there, got invited to try out for the local pro soccer team there, and when I say pro soccer, it was just a Division II soccer team, but it was still professional. And they said, hey, we'd really love you to try out for the team. And I did and made it. And they said, look, we'd love you to come back to the country and play on our team and be a part of what we're doing. And I said, you know what? I don't have any ties in the United States. Thought about it as a resume builder. And I'm going to learn the language. So I decided to come back to the United States, sell everything I had, and took a year of my life and went back down to Honduras to give it a shot. And 1 year turned into 15 years. It's been an incredible ride. Yeah.
Wow. And before we move on to more questions, I have to mention that we got a couple giveaways tonight. I can't believe I forgot to mention that because people love that. So I've got 4 3-pack samplers of your cigars.
Nice.
I've decided we're going to give 2 of those away live during the show to people who ask questions. So if you're watching, ask a question, and you have a pretty good chance of winning some free cigars. Well, they're free, but you have to pay 99 cents so that we're selling them to you rather than giving them to you.
Absolutely. Good old government.
Yeah, that's just a technicality of the world we live in now with the FDA. It's hard to give away cigars these days.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to give away 2 to podcast listeners. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm going to know because I'm going to be in the Dominican Republic when I get your email. And if I'm still in the U.S. when I get your email, you cheated.
Well, then we also want to offer up one of our T-shirts. So Providencia T-shirt, and we also have, I don't know if you can see,
there we go.
Oh, nice.
So one of each. We got 4 prizes during the show. All right, that gives you guys a good chance. So get your questions in. So I'm gonna let Ray and Jim pick their favorite questions at the end of the show. So so get asking, guys. Get on it.
So I don't know if you want to get into when Jim met Javier, the grower, and how that whole how Jim actually got into blending the cigars and learning the industry.
Yeah, how did you go from being a soccer player to making cigars?
Well, very, very interesting story. Well, while I was there, I wanted to learn everything about the country, the culture, soak everything in. Like I said, I only wanted to invest about a year of my life there. And while I was there, met a girl, and we ended up getting married and had 2 children. And we actually eventually adopted a girl from a trash dump area of Honduras. Oh, wow. And so, long story short, I was traveling around the country, going to different areas of the country, and one of the main areas of the country for cigar production was Danlí, Honduras. And I was actually there on a trip through soccer, and somebody invited me to go on a cigar factory tour. And I had only smoked some Swisher Sweets in college, just screwing around, getting sick and drinking too much. And, I went to this cigar factory tour and I met Javier Mendoza, who at the time was the vice president of the cigar factory that actually makes and continues to make Alec Bradley cigars.
Oh,
and, sure. Yeah. And so he showed me around. I absolutely fell in love with the process. Smoked my first really good cigar, almost puked, got sick. And, but that was my introduction into the cigar world. And every time I went back to that city, I would meet with Javier and he would give me a 101 in cigar rolling, tobacco, growing, aging, from start to finish. And I couldn't get enough of it. I absolutely fell in love with the process. And now I'm about 5-6 years into living there in the country. And Javier says to me one day, why don't you create your own cigar blend? I'll help you. You can do this. Maybe someday you might move back to the United States, and I can help you, and we can have some really, really good cigars in the United States. And I kind of laughed it off, and I thought about it for a while, and I said, why not? Let's give it a shot, kind of like a hobby. I said, yeah, let's do this on the side. Let's see where it goes. And that's when it started. He took me out to the fields. He owns over 300 acres of land right on the Nicaraguan-Honduran border. Actually, his land sits up and overlooks Ernesto Plasencia's land in Nicaragua. It's absolutely picturesque. And once I was out at the fields and got to see the barns and where they grow it and where they age it and where they dry it out, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. And I said, let's do this. I'm in. I'm totally in. What do I need to do? And he said, let's go for it. So he said, let's become partners. And he said, you're one of the only North Americans I've ever met that I feel like, you're one of us. Because I lived there. I learned the language. I was married to a Honduran. My children were born there. I adopted a Honduran. So I was very, very accepted in that country. Mm-hmm. And he just said, look, you have access to everything I have access to. And that's when we started. Yeah, it was an amazing experience.
We're going to take a quick break for one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with more questions for the guys from Providencia.
Brought to you by Gurkha Cigars. Gurkha Cigars, makers of the world's finest cigars. Try the 93 rated Heritage featuring Rosado Ecuador Habano wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, and Dominican, Pennsylvania, and Nicaraguan fillers. Blended by Gurkha's blending team at American Caribbean Cigars, it's hand-rolled Nicaraguan, available in 35-count boxes. Talk to your local B&M about the Heritage today, or talk to them about other fine Gurkha cigars. Whatever your taste preference is, Gurkha has a cigar that's right for you.
And we're back with the guys from Providencia Cigars. If you haven't been paying attention, we are giving away some 3-packs. You got to pay 99 cents to please the FDA. But ask a question, and we'll pick one of you lucky guys or girls. I'm going to let Jason ask a question next.
Well, yeah. So you're talking about kind of working on blending cigars with Javier. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what series of events for Javier led to blending the cigars with you, and then being someone who was relatively new to being thrown into that, what was that process like for you?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. Javier taught me I owe everything to him. I knew nothing, right? I'm starting out. I'm a gringo, know nothing, never smoked cigars. Now I'm getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the cigar industry, learning more and more every day, and I still am. Javier basically took me from he started out with the growing process and basically taught me, if you want to make a premium cigar, you want to be in this industry, tobacco is the key. When you own your own tobacco and you have access to your own tobacco, you pretty much have the keys to everything. You can trade that tobacco for tobacco that you want. You're really not subject to standing in line, waiting to get this tobacco, that tobacco. We literally we have tobacco in our plant right now that's 5-6 years age, that's just sitting there waiting for whatever we want to do. Blends, different things that we want to do with it. We want to trade it out for other things. So that's really how he started out in the process with me. He said, look, grow your own tobacco, and then we age that tobacco and we go from there. And so we would sit in the office in Danley, and literally we would go from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and smoke 20 cigars. And he would make me sit there and take notes. what do you sense? He wouldn't tell me anything. He was just testing my ability to sense this and that and the different flavors. And little by little, I began to learn and began to, sense different notes in the cigars, different tastes in the tobacco. And he would test me. Now, where do you think that tobacco came from in the world? He'd throw different tobacco in there and then quiz me. And little by little, I just started to learn about the different tastes. Tobacco from Nicaragua, tobacco from Honduras, tobacco from Dominican Republic, all the different areas of the world and the different flavors and profiles that you get. And so that's how we started. We just started, having fun. We had fun with it. It really was just absolute fun. I started it out as a hobby and said, look, if this turns into anything, great. If not, I have an education in the cigar world that I'll go back to the United States one day with and really appreciate it. And, that's how we started.
I've heard you tell the story about it's 10 years and 30 blends.
Oh my gosh. We went through so many different blends, so many different smokes, so many different recipes. And I was really particular because then I started coming back to the United States. I'd fly back at Christmas time to visit my family, holidays, birthday parties, and I'd buy 50 cigars of the top cigars out there, and we'd take them back and smoke them, reverse engineer them, just get to know what in the market's selling, what's out there, what's hot, what people like, and so. Just really immersing myself in the cigar world.
Yeah.
So Javier's from seed to cigar, totally vertically integrated operation. So he owns his own land. He grows on his own land. He's drying barns on the land. We have a lot of the pictures back here of the process. Actually, this is Javier's land and some pictures of Jim and I when we were down there. And then after the tobacco was up in the aging barns, and he takes it down and drives it an hour and a half down the mountain to his factory, ages it there, flips it, does all the things that you do to get the tobacco right, and then has rollers and rolling stations right there in Danley. So he's totally controls the entire process from growing and bartering from his tobacco to the finished product, which is unique in itself.
Yeah, that's great. You're not having to go out and source tobacco for your cigars.
Yeah, so I was going to say that it doesn't get mentioned enough, at least I don't think, that if you're a new company and you say, I want to make a cigar and I want, unless you go to a factory and you're just using whatever tobacco they have, if you try to start a factory and you go to one of the tobacco companies, you are the very last person that gets to pick tobacco. So you come in and they go, well, we got a bale of this left, a bale of that, and we got all this. This bale has holes in it, but
if you want that,
and they're also going to upcharge you because you're the new guy. And that's just how it is in the tobacco industry. Once you've established relationships, it's a lot easier. Like you can buy whatever you want, but when you don't have those relationships, you're really starting off on the wrong foot. And being able to use your own tobacco that you've grown gives you a lot of power. Because then the tobacco from that guy who would barely sell you anything before, you can say, what if I trade you this tobacco? And that incentivizes him a little bit because you've got something he doesn't have.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of in the opposite position than a lot of our, I guess, colleagues are, where, I hear some of the stories, they have trouble with everything you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I'm sit there and I'm like, gosh, man, that's the one thing that we don't worry about is exactly what, some others have to deal with. Our biggest issue right now is just awareness and getting our name out there and having people try our cigar. It's sales and distribution on the U.S. side. The Honduran side of the thing is like, it's what we sleep well at night. That doesn't even pop up on our radar as far as being an issue. And I never really realized what an issue it can be for people that don't have the access like we do. But, on the flip side, you have guys that have trouble, maybe sourcing the tobacco, but they have their sales and marketing and distribution rocking, and we're like, man, we wish we had a piece of that. So it goes both ways,
Yeah, that's true. So before we continue with the story, I'm dying to ask about like the cigar geeky questions, which for the people who aren't familiar with your blends, the El Padre uses a Connecticut shade wrapper grown in Nicaragua, and the El Santo uses a Sumatra wrapper grown in Nicaragua.
Correct.
As far as I know, there aren't really any other cigars on the market that are using those wrappers yet. How did you guys land on those?
Great question. Javier, when he was 11 years old, was actually approached by Ernesto Plasencia. This was in the early 80s. And he came across the border, introduced himself, and began growing tobacco on Javier's grandparents' land. It was his grandparents' land. And that established the relationship. And Ernesto Plasencia kind of took Javier in under his wings, and he worked for him for many years. And that relationship, obviously, you've been down to Nicaragua, as you've told us before the show. Everything down there works on relationship. If you do not have a relationship, you get nothing accomplished. And so that relationship still is it's like this. These guys, they know one another. They know each other's families. They love one another. They support one another. And so that access to tobacco does not come outside of having a relationship. And so really, I owe it all to Javier and just his family and the years that they've been there. So we got access to that tobacco simply through that relationship.
That's incredible that you guys got access to this tobacco that nobody else has yet. And it's just like, I've heard people talking about it. I haven't seen other cigars. There are no other cigars that I can think of off the top of my head that are using either of those wrappers. But I know I've heard people talking about it. So I know it's coming sooner or later. But you guys beat everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a testament to Javier and all the hard work him and his family put in. And thanks to Ernesto for believing in us and believing in Javier and what we're doing, and then we trade tobacco back and forth. So he may give us the wrappers, but then we also trade him premium tobacco that we have. Might be Ligero leaves, it might be other leaves that he's looking for. Because, as every region has a different flavor, different taste.
Absolutely.
And that's where you get the uniqueness of the cigar. And so we've just been in a great spot, a great position to really have access to tobacco that not a lot of people have access to.
And I have an audience question here that I think this guy should win something. I'll let you guys make the call on that, because he is a regular viewer, so I don't want to seem biased. But
it's your brother. It's your brother, right?
No, it's not. He's seen football and baseball themed cigars. Do you guys have any thoughts on a soccer themed cigar?
That's actually not a bad idea. That's pretty. That would be close to your heart. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're actually playing up some of our cigars that are going to be coming out. We'll kind of give a backstory of a lot of things that happened to me while I was in Honduras. I moved back to the United States in 2011. Wasn't planning on it. Unfortunately, was kidnapped and escaped a kidnapping and had to move back to the United States. 24 hours later, and showed up back here, no job, no plan, nothing. And that's where Ray and his family really helped me out to get my, feet, on the ground here in the United States. But absolutely, we're actually looking into a lot of the new blends that we come out with, tying back into the story of all the years that I was there. So actually the soccer is that's an awesome idea.
Yes, he does win. He does win.
He does win.
All right, Jeremy Miller, you got it.
He has.
Well, one of the stories that would play well to paying homage to the soccer there was that, and Jim should tell it, but I'll just kind of tee it up. He became very friendly with the mayor in Danley, and Comiago, I'm sorry. And, the mayor asked, what can I do to help? And basically Jim said, give me that trash dump over there and let me make it into a soccer field. And that's what he did. The next day, then you're just telling the story. Next day, there was a bulldozer on the land, and they cleared the land, and Jim and his colleagues down there built a soccer field right on the trash dump. And that would be a great way to pay homage back to that particular incident, because that was the jump start of the soccer clinic, right? Being able to play on that land.
I worked a lot with MS-13 gang members. While I was there, I wanted to give back to the country, and I wanted to do something nobody else was doing. And I always like to do unique things that nobody else is doing. There's hundreds and hundreds of orphanages, feeding centers, but nobody had the guts to go and work with the gang members. And so the mayor of the city where I lived said, look, if you want to help us out, try to help us out with this neighborhood. It's a thorn in our side. It's overrun by MS-13 gang members. See what you could do. And I said, as long as I have your backing, if I need your help, he said, yeah, you got my help. And so I started working in this neighborhood. And we turned a trash dump. Actually, they didn't even have trash removal in that neighborhood because they were too scared that they would be robbed. The trash men were scared to go to that neighborhood. And so they would take their trash and throw it off the side of a cliff into this huge open lot. And so I went to the mayor and asked if I could have that lot and if we could turn it into a soccer field. And the next day the bulldozers were there. And so we bulldozed the whole fields and made a soccer field for that community. And it really helped turn that whole community around.
Oh, that's amazing. Before we move on, we got to take another break for one of our sponsors. So, guys, we'll be right back, and we'll talk a little bit more about Jim's experiences in Honduras because they're really interesting. We'll be right back.
This show is sponsored by Cigar Oasis. Don't spend all your time worrying about your cigar wrappers cracking, splitting, or falling apart from humidity fluctuation issues. Set it and forget it by choosing Cigar Oasis, a professional solution which provides equal distribution of humidity with precise electronic controls. Monitor your cigars through the internet using the Smart Humidor Wi-Fi attachment. Why don't you spend all your time enjoying your cigars and relaxing and let Cigar Oasis protect your cigars? Cigar Oasis has solutions for any humidor. Make sure you set it and forget it today.
All right, and we're back talking to the guys from Providencia Cigars. I'm looking through, going to get some more audience questions here. So I have a question from kind of two people. I'll give credit to James Appello.
All right. Oh, we know James.
He wants to know when you guys are releasing more Vitolas. And then Peter Irizarry, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Peter. Yeah, he's the owner of the Royal Leaf. Hey, Peter, what's happening, brother? What's up, Peter?
Yes, we've got all the Royal Leaf guys watching. They love. Peter also says Royal Leaf loves Providencia. You got a couple of big fans over there.
Yeah.
So James wants to know when you guys are releasing more Vitolas. And Peter wants to know when you guys are releasing a Lancero, which, I mean, that question is very close to my heart. I love Lancero.
Yes. It comes up a lot.
It does. It does. So your first question, yes, I went down there. I go down to Honduras at least twice a year to work on new blends with Javier. I was just down there in December. We have two absolutely fantastic blends that are in the hopper. We're aging the tobacco. We actually have the cigars rolled as we speak. They're resting. We have plans on coming out with two new blends this year in 2018. And your second question, we've been working on the Lanceros. Just have not hit on something I can put on the market yet that I'm really proud of, but we are working on the Lanceros. But this year expect two new blends from Providencia, along with the blend that just came out in January. The actually what I'm smoking right now, the Trinitas, the triple Ligero. Expect a double Ligero cigar to come out, and something that is new to the market nobody else I can't tell you the secret, but nobody else that I know of now has this particular blend and this particular twist on a cigar. It'll be new. It's fantastic. Everybody's going to be blown away by it.
We've had some samples created, and a few of our trusted tasters and those that have tried it are very excited about both of these blends that Jim brought up. So, yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to those.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, do you have a question teed up?
Yeah. So, I was kind of thinking about you talked about building this community soccer field, and people in the United States, soccer as a big professional sport is still growing here. But maybe talk a little bit about, I know for countries like Honduras, I mean, having a community soccer field is huge.
Absolutely. So when I started in this neighborhood, I was asked by the mayor to go to this neighborhood to help restore it, to help vitalize this neighborhood. It was overrun by about 40 MS-13 gang members. And quickly I realized, unless you get past the gang members, you're not doing anything in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And like you just said, a soccer field is pretty much like a church. I mean, it's where the whole community hangs out. It's where they go. It's where they go every day after work. It's where they hang out on the weekends. That's where they're there. And so once I was able to turn that trash dump into a soccer field, that's when things in that neighborhood started to transform. Gang members started coming out of the gang. I helped all of them get on teams. I sponsored uniforms. I bought them soccer shoes. As long as they played soccer and they were on the team, I provided everything for them. And that's really when we started seeing a lot of transformation in that city. Yeah,
that's awesome.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, soccer's worship there. It's probably soccer, family, God, or soccer, God, family, kind of in that order.
With a cigar thrown in.
Exactly.
I've got another audience question here from Stephen Walters, who's also at Royal Leaf. He picked up a box of Trinitas, and he would like you to explain how that cigar was developed with the specific wrapper to tone down the strength of the Triple Ligero.
Go ahead, Raymond.
Well, that's really more of your blend. I mean, I think I'll take a little bit of credit for the shape. I really wanted to do a figurado and wanted to just be a little bit longer than what we had. It's a half-inch longer. We had come in contact with the San Andreas wrapper and really fell in love with it. There's a little bit of toothiness to it, it's just a little rough. Yeah. And we tapered both ends, so it's a kind of a box. It's the box press. We like box press too, so it was the box press. It was figurado. It was tapered on both ends. So I was kind of behind the direction in the shape of the Vitola, and then Jim and Javier worked on the blend. The binder and the Triple Ligero. And what's interesting about the Triple Ligero, I don't know how much you want to share, but I know, and this I wasn't aware of because I'm still learning, but as you guys know, and the audience probably knows, in order to be a true Triple Ligero, the three Ligero leaves need to come from 3 different regions, which I wasn't aware of that.
I didn't know that was a thing either.
Yes. And that particular cigar actually has 4 Ligero leaves in it, a half leaf from 2 different regions. So 2 full leaves from 2 separate regions, and the third leaf is a half leaf from 2 different region. So it actually has 4 Ligero leaves, which is pretty unique in itself.
Yeah.
As far as we know.
Yeah, and also to be able to come out with a Ligero, obviously everybody expects a Ligero to blow you away, right? You want to smoke a Ligero, you want your head to spin. My take on it was I wanted to try something different. I wanted to come out with a Ligero that was bold, but also fit the kind of medium profile as well. Something that everybody could grab a hold of, smoke, and enjoy. And that was the experience I was after. And so the San Andreas wrapper, I feel like, mellowed out some of the Ligero leaves. and gave it a little bit of sweetness, mellowed it out a little bit. And when we smoked it, Javier and I smoked it in the office, I said, this is it. This is what we're going with. And I was really, really excited about it. We brought about 100 cigars here to the United States. We had them taste tested with some friends that we really trust their opinion on. They loved it. They said, look, this is a huge hit. Go with this. So that's, we went to market with that.
Yeah, I'm smoking it right now too. And it is really surprising because I wouldn't guess that there were 3 Ligero leaves in this.
Right.
It's bold, but it doesn't really have the amount of strength that you expect from a triple Ligero.
Mm-hmm.
It really is kind of a solid medium body, which I'm surprised by.
Agree. Yeah. Actually, the next blend that we're coming out with is going to be a double Ligero, but is actually way, way more bold than this cigar. So it just depends on what tobaccos you mix with it, the wrapper you mix with it, the combination of tobaccos that you mix from different regions. Really, really either make it that spicy, bold flavor to the medium, smooth to bold flavor as well.
Yeah, anyone who's never blended a cigar, you can't just toss a bunch of Ligero in there and it turns into like this strong, ultra powerful Ligero bomb. There's definitely I don't know, there's an art to it.
For sure.
Being able to balance it, but also have that amount of flavor. Because I've blended a couple of cigars like at the Cigar Safari, and some of them have turned out not so good.
Yeah. Oh, I've done a lot of those.
I'm sure you blended a lot more cigars than I have, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
So we're going to name this new cigar that we're talking about, this new double Ligero, the Hostage, and that's going to pay homage to Jim's hostage or attempted kidnapping experience. The first 3 blends are more of a homage to our faith and Jim's the providence that God had over Jim while he was in Honduras for 15 years. So the saint is the El Santo is the saint, the El Padre is the Father, and the Trinitas is the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So that's our homage to our faith and protection for Jim while he was down there. Now we're going to move towards naming the cigars towards Jim's experiences in Honduras and be able to tell a little bit about his story with each release. So ideally,
that's a really interesting method of naming cigars, I think.
Yeah, because it's quite a story to tell, and if we can find the more interesting parts of the story, which there are many of, to coincide with the release of the cigar and have the inlay of the cigar box open and to tell a little bit of the story, and then direct people possibly to our website to get more of the story if they're interested in the few sentences they read, that type of thing. We think it'll be an interesting experience for everyone.
Unique. Well,
yeah.
All right. Before we go to our last commercial break, which isn't really a break, I say that every week. I have one more audience question from Steve Christopher. He wants to know where you guys see yourself and the company in 5 years. He wants to know, shout out to Shad Bates. He's probably not watching right now, but he'll probably catch the replay. He always asks about the 5-year plan. It's very important.
Yeah. That's a really good question. If I'm going to be totally transparent, which we always want to be, I don't know if we've thought out 5 years, to be honest with you. Just to be totally honest, we're
FDA.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with the FDA. So our goal is to do pretty much what we've already outlined. We'd like to come out with 2 cigars a year, at least 2 blends a year, and make sure that we have the right tobacco and the right recipes and have them, taste it. And, we want to grow. I mean, obviously we can't survive in being in 20 locations. I mean, and we could, but that's, really not the plan. We'd like to be in more brick and mortar. We'd like everyone to be able to have access to the cigar and experience the cigar. So the 5-year plan would probably be coming up with methods and partnerships that allow us to get our Providencia brand into the hands of cigar smokers across the country, however that ends up being.
I mean, well, one thing is if you're watching or listening to this, go to your local B&M, ask for Providencia Cigars, help these guys out.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had, if I can just do a couple of shout outs, the Underground here in Fort Worth, one of our first supporters, 3R Cigars, the Pop Safari Lounge, we've got the Millville guys, the Royal Leaf, and soon Goodfellas. We have a couple of locations if you go to our website and go to the dealer tab, you'll see where we're listed. It's like I said, it's about 18 to 20 locations. We've seen that we I don't know, we get half a dozen a year or so, it seems like. But it's really like a marathon for us. It's not a sprint. That's, we're just reaching out to people as we can via Facebook. We don't have a lot of time to go out and visit shops and make appointments. And so we don't have a sales force per se. We have friends and family, that are helping us and introducing the brands to shops. The Royal Leaf and the Goodfellas guys in New Jersey, that was both through Facebook. That was just me reaching out via Facebook and, telling them a little bit about our story and would they be interested in some samples and trying us out. And in both occasions they turned into be partners for us, which we're very appreciative of. But I'm a full-time school teacher, and hey, all the prayers, we've shed a lot of tears over the last few days. I'm a school teacher. All prayers go out to all the people in Florida. Horrible. I shed a lot of tears today in front of my children, just reading some of the accounts of what happened there. But don't have a lot of time to dedicate. We'd love to make this full time, right? Yeah. But I got to pay the bills. I have 3 children. They're all in high school or college, and we're just plugging along, trying to not to get into debt, and just allow God to lead us, and we just love what we're doing. I love that people are smoking our cigars, enjoying our cigars. That brings a smile to my face every day. And we're both just enjoying the process and enjoying the ride. So however long it lasts, it's great. We've made great relationships and great friendships in the year and a half that we've been doing this. Everyone's been very receptive to us. Sometimes it's just a cold call. We'll walk in and we've been well received, and some of the appointments have been more formal. But we've met great people. Different parts of the country, and the local base here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area has been just been super to us as well.
All right, and this segment is brought to you by Jason. Who's this brought to you by?
Brought to us by Drew Estate.
You got it.
All right. That was one of the first cigars I ever smoked.
Man, I mean, so
the Java.
All they ask of us as advertisers is that we say this is brought to you by Drew Estate. They good. But I feel the need every week to say that if you haven't smoked a Drew Estate cigar lately, go smoke them. They make some really good cigars. They have a ton of blends. They have something that's going to hit every kind of style. If you smoked one and you didn't like it, they've got something that you're going to like for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they make great cigars. They're now the biggest cigar manufacturer in Nicaragua, which is insane.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
But at least the largest factory. They may not be the largest exporter, but they're the factory with the most employees, which is crazy.
They employ a lot of people, and that's something true and dear to Ray and I's heart. Is all the people that we're able to employ, right? Yeah. So we're tiny. We're just a tiny blip, on the scale of all these manufacturers that are out there. But just to be able to employ, just our little operation over 100 employees. We put food on the table of Hondurans and the ladies that pick the tobacco to, the ones that are climbing up, into the rafters and drying out the tobacco to the guys that roll it. I'm very, very close friends with a lot of these people. I lived there for 15 years, so I know them. I know their families. I know their children. And it's great just to be able to know that, we're playing a small role in helping provide food, on the plates for those families. It's a great thing. It's a great feeling.
Absolutely. Let me see if we have another audience question here. Here's one from Bob Dog. What would you say is the biggest challenge or hurdle you've had to overcome in bringing these cigars to the market?
I would say retail, just getting in on the shelf and having the time to do it. Like we said earlier in the program, the production side of things, we don't even think about that. That's the least of our concerns is actually producing a cigar, a good cigar. It's the biggest challenge is, you go into a shop and, the owner being very frank with, come on, look in my humidor, it's full. I like your cigar, but no one knows you. No one's going to be coming in asking for it. How am I going to get your cigar to stand out over everything that I have in my humidor that, people come in for? That's probably our biggest challenge is having retailers take a chance on us. We think we have a fairly low, a reasonably priced, I should say, entry point for our cigar. I mean, we've been told unsolicited that, people think our cigars smoke $10, that's a $10 cigar or higher. And again, they retail mostly for $8. So, we tried to keep the cigar costs low to the consumer. So it would be an easy entry point for the retailer. But that would be, I think, the biggest struggle is being able to secure space on the shelf. And then once you're in, then you have to have a shop that's willing to promote you because their retailer is right in that regard, that if we do get on shelf, then we probably will just sit there. Because if the shop isn't recommending us or saying, hey, you really want a good $10 cigar, under $10 cigar, try this Providencia. You want a mild, something mild to medium or medium to bold. When that's happening, and it does happen, we get plenty of repeat business and we're replenishing, regularly in a handful of shops. But some of the shops that are not taking the time to recommend us, will be a slow turn for that reason. It's just like any other product, right? Whether it's a bottle of wine or a beer, it's kind of the same thing. You're one of many, many lookalikes. So what is it that's going to help you stand out? So the word of mouth from the shop owner is a big part of that, but we've also gone out of our way, and I don't see this a lot either. We've actually created in-store promotional materials for our cigars, which I think you guys, or at least you have, Tripp, have seen. We have flyers, 5.5 flyers. Yeah, so we have one for each blend that we give to the retailer with their orders and encourage them to place them out on the tables to introduce them, the cigars, to their customers in hopes that they come in and they pick something else out of the humidor, but they sit down, they pick up that flyer, they start reading about it, and they ask a question of the retailer, what's up with this, this flyer, the cigar? And, that helps bring awareness to the cigar. And we also have created shelf talkers for the two out of the 3 blends. So we feel like we've given the retailer some tools to help them if they'll use them. And again, I'm not sure how, I don't see a tremendous amount of that in the marketplace. So I think that's another thing that we provide that's unique to help our brand, to introduce our brand to the stores, to the consumers.
And then just the story, knowing that, it's just not another couple gringos trying to sling a couple cigars out there. Like I sacrificed almost my life, 15 years in the country, building relationship, working day in and day out on, the growing side, the blending side, learning, meeting people, immersing myself in the culture. And so, that speaks volumes. There aren't a lot of manufacturers out there that can say that. And so it's just getting the word out to people. This show hopefully will produce some awareness. And the more we do, the more we're able to tell our story and get our story out there. I think, once people try our cigars, I think it's a slam dunk from there. But it's just basically getting the word out.
Jason, you got another question? I've been hogging all the questions tonight.
Yeah, so maybe for people that are interested in trying your cigars, what do you recommend as sort of an entry point for them? Well, what should they go out and try?
Well, it really depends on their, what they like, right? Their palate. So the El Padre is probably a very good introductory cigar for a novice, but also for somebody with a sophisticated palate. That cigar is going to have a very, very easy draw. And
not a lot of Connecticut's out there that people enjoy. Right. I didn't even want to come out with a Connecticut wrapper, to tell you the truth. Ray was the one that said, no, we got to come out with a Connecticut wrapper. I'm like, oh, okay, let's do it. There aren't a lot of Connecticut wrappers out there. So yeah, that cigar is fantastic. If you like a Connecticut wrapper.
It's interesting that a lot of beginners will consider that to be a mild cigar, but a more sophisticated palate right away will come to us in events and say, for a Connecticut, this is more of a medium. So it's interesting, yeah. Which to me, it's more on the mild side, but we get both mild and medium. So I would recommend that as an entry point. But if they like them, and that one's going to have some nut, a little bit of kind of cedar kind of flavors. I've even heard a little bit of citrus to it, and it produces a lot of smoke. The El Santo with that Sumatra wrapper, you're going to get some spice and some pepper, more chocolate and cocoa in that one, and that's going to be a bolder smoke. That's a medium plus. Yeah, but that's going to have more of a traditional draw. So that's the more you got to pop on a little bit. The other one, the El Padre, is going to be more a real easy draw, which I think for a novice or a beginner is a good way to start.
Nice. Yeah, I've been smoking the
I was going to ask what you thought.
The El Santo, and it's great. Like you said, tons of really great coffee flavors. I want to smoke another one of these with a cup of just some nice bold coffee.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. We have we have our Eagles glasses, our Eagles mugs, and a little bit of Bailey's in there with it. It's really nice.
There you go.
It sounds good.
Yeah. So, the only other thing I was going to say, and you may not have time for it, and we can save it for another time, but Jim's escape from Honduras with the recipes, it kind of reminds me of the scene in Pulp Fiction when Christopher Walken's talking about, how his grandfather had to get that watch out of the foxhole, right? It's kind of like the way Jim had to leave Honduras with those recipes. I mean, he was held at gunpoint, forced into a car, and they tried to drive away with him before it was thwarted. And the gun went off, and one of the dads that helped thwart the kidnapping attempt lost the tip of his finger, and they finally subdued the guy, and the police came. The dads wanted to actually kill the assailant. They hogtied him, and the dads wanted to kill him on the spot and dump him in the river because that's what you do in Honduras. And Jim was like, we can't kill this guy. We need to call the cops. But the dads were afraid that the cops could actually be in on it because it's so corrupt there. But they took their chances, and the cops were legit. And the cops basically said, you have, two options, and they're both bad. You either don't testify against the guy and he'll be out in 24 hours and you'll be dead, or you testify against the guy and he'll be in jail for at least a year, but these guys will still be looking for you. So either way, you pretty much have to flee the country. So he decided to testify, and that bought him some time to be able to get his affairs in order and to flee. And he left with his 2 biological kids, but had to leave his wife and the daughter that they were in the middle of adopting behind because their paperwork wasn't in order. He had to hire security service for them and put them in a safe house until he could get them out. It took almost a year, right?
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, I moved to the United States in 2011 with my 2 younger children, and I was mom and dad for almost a year and a half by myself.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, needless to say, Providencia Cigars got put on the shelf for a couple of years until I could figure life out, I was just happy to be alive. Had some great friends along the way that helped me with job and place to stay. And that's when I decided I wanted to get back into teaching. I love children. I'm a soccer coach and a school teacher now, and absolutely love working with kids. And so once I was established, got my wife and adopted daughter here in the country, that's when Ray and I kind of took off with Providencia and said, all right, let's get this rocking. Let's they stole a lot from me. I lost everything, but I'm not giving up the cigars. So that's when we started going full board on let's produce a great cigar and bring it to market and see what happens.
We didn't even know at that point. So this is 2011. So in 2000, so he's telling me this, I said, well, I'd like to get involved. How do you see me getting involved? And he's like, well, we have to grow tobacco. We got to have tobacco. Back to, what Jim was saying about how, that's the key to the kingdom is having tobacco. He said, regardless of whether or not we ever get the Providencia line off the ground, go ahead and grow the tobacco with Javier, and then we will buy it. The company will buy it from you if we decide to move forward. But at least get the tobacco grown in 2012 is when we plant it. And we'll have the tobacco. If we decide not to launch Providencia in the States, then at least you'll have the tobacco grown, and Javier will be able to sell it on the open market for you, and you'll just make money that way, just being a grower. But we were fortunate enough to where we went ahead we decided that once the tobacco was grown and aged, that we were going to go ahead and give it a shot and come out with our own, because he already had the recipes for the 2 original blends that he felt good about coming to market with.
Wow, it's an incredible story. Like, it's a story you don't typically hear in the cigar industry. But I mean, in any industry, it's a fantastic story. Any other closing questions for you, Jason?
I don't think so. Let people know where they can find you on like the internet and social media.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that. So our website is fully functional. A lot of information there about how you can purchase our cigars, where you can buy them, or the retailers that carry them, and other ways to come in contact with the cigars. That's providenciacigars.com. We're also, Jim and I both have Facebook pages. I'm Raymond Providencia. Jim is Jim Providencia Cigars. And then we also have a corporate Facebook page, Providencia Cigars, and Instagram for Providencia Cigars. So that's our social media, no Twitter. But again, we both have our own. We do most of the communication through our personal Providencia accounts. I'm slowly trying to have the company web or the company Facebook page, Providencia Cigars, be the main communication method. So we're trying to merge our personal followers into our corporate Facebook followers. So we're kind of working on that now. But any of you that are out there listening, if you would like Providencia Cigars on Facebook, and if you're not familiar with us, Raymond Providencia and Jim Providencia Cigars, I post a couple times a week, and I try not to push sales. It's more just about being involved in the community, because I'm still learning. I'm on Facebook a couple hours a day. I'm in a bunch of groups, and I'm just learning. I just want to know more about the industry and how we can be a bigger part of it, and find out what people like and come to market with unique product that everyone will enjoy. But thanks for asking, Jason.
Yeah, if I didn't have you, Jason, I'd always forget that part. And the last question that I have for you is, who are the other 3 winners that you pick? I guess we didn't have that many questions. So our possible winners are James, Bob
Absolutely.
Dog,
James from the Royal Leaf. He's got a T-shirt coming.
All right.
I know how to get in touch with him, so I'll reach out to him. Who else?
All right. Stephen Walters and Bob Dog.
Okay, we can give, if Stephen Waters would like a Providencia lighter, we can send him one of those.
All right. So,
and then if you give me that information, and I'll get it out to him.
All right. So you guys can send me an email, Tripp, TRIPP, @cigarfederation.com. Bob Dog and Jeremy Miller, email me about your 99-cent 3 cigar samplers, and I'll get those invoiced and sent out to you. And then, of course, if you're listening to the podcast, we're picking 2 winners for cigars from there. So if you're listening to the podcast, send me an email, Tripp@cigarfederation.com. I will get back to the first 2 people that email me.
Awesome.
And with that, we'll close up. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate all of the comments, questions, thumbs up, thumbs down. Doesn't
matter. We're glad you watched.
Yeah, we're glad you watched. We appreciate your time, and we hope you had fun hanging out with us.
Yes.
We will not be back next week. Dennis and I are both going to be on assignment in the Dominican Republic, but we'll be back the following week. We'll kind of have I think what we're going to do is an episode of sharing our pairings that is mostly focused on recapping our experiences in the DR. So we may just have one pairing or something like that, but we'll figure that out while we're on assignment. So thanks again for watching, and of course we appreciate everybody listening on the Armed Forces Radio Network. You guys are built to do things we're not built to do, and we appreciate you out there protecting our freedoms. Everybody have a great weekend and have a great evening.
All right, God bless everyone. Thank you. Stay smoky, guys.